I was thinking, what is the gift? There's so many things that the word gift embodies. And so this is the gift. Being here together. So welcome. Just, I think, I don't know, it's time to do nothing, isn't it? So let's meditate. Just let it, first of all, just let it come to you, let your life come to you. And whatever great festivities or troubles or difficulties happened yesterday, this morning, a year ago, they're not here right now. We're free. So the forgetting, the marvelous forgetting, that's a gift too. I think a lot about what are gifts, So just feel the gift of your life and of being you. There's something that you can't, the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The you that can be described, it's not the eternal you. So, but feel what it's like, because it's it's what we came for, the unique way of being and consciousness and feeling for life, the unique soul that you have. And I don't know, I say that's why we came for, but that's a good enough that's why we came. That's a good enough explanation. Like, but here we are, having this eternal moment, just feeling the time, feeling it come to us, just feeling it, what's it like, what's the field we're in, and just let it come to you. There's a kind of very marvel in how much that's the gift, right? We just hear, and the old Zen saying is the 10,000 things advance and meet us. And just being here, everything enters the heart. There's no excuse for being alive, but we can laugh and enjoy it. So the gift, I think about the involuntary nature of wisdom and joy, and also of sorrow, and a lot of I suppose a lot of unhappiness is us thinking somehow we could have held our mouth differently, and well, I should have done this or that. And I notice people have, in times of difficulty, which we're in right now, people often feel a certain regret, I could have done this or that differently. And I don't know that's really true, that you could have done anything differently. So I think that we can't be a person different from ourselves. And the karmic threads and the karmic flow of your life has led to this. With its joy. If you really consider it, with its joy. There's no negotiating that, really. The involuntary quality of the way, the vastness of life and how it comes at us. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The Tao that can be spoken. And so then everything becomes a gift. It's not described or planned or plotted. And so I was thinking about, I've got all these nice things, poems people have written, things like this, but I was just thinking about my life, actually. So I just said a couple of things that happened recently. Like on Friday, I woke up and the water was out, and I live in the country, and there's a little water company that's sort of managed by somebody who kind of checks it. And so I didn't know what's wrong up at this or something up. And I can get airlocks in my line, so I had to do that. I couldn't get anyone up early in the morning, so I drove up to the water tank, which is up on a hill, only about half a mile away, and took a towel and threw it over the barbed wire. And so somebody left the gate unlocked. That was great, so you get in the gate. And then and then I had to. Then I took a tiny little kitchen step ladder and stand on that, and I threw a towel over the barbed wire and had gloves, and so I'm sort of climbing out like a rock climber. It's kind of fun, and at some stage I'm spread out like this on a tree. And I thought, I don't know, I think I'm getting a bit old for this. But anyway, I got over the other side and it cleared the airlock, but there wasn't an airlock. I thought, oh, so the problem's worse than I thought. And so then I climbed back again, and then actually the superintendent, completely randomly, as a gift turns up, and he says, "Well, there must be a leak in your thing." I said, "I don't know." So I said, "No, let's check your. Are you getting water to the meter? Yes. Is water coming out the other side of the meter? No. What do you think that means?" And he said, "I think that means you must have a leak down in your pad." I said, "I don't think that's what it means." Like, what is coming in and there's not coming out there, it doesn't mean there's a leak down there. So I had to take it. Took me a while to explain, to persuade him to check it. And in fact, there's a little meter like this. All this gunk fell out, and water immediately started flowing. But there are all sorts of mysteries. Like for some reason, it was flowing back uphill from my house and things like that. So fishing done to the day. We'll sort out the mysteries later. Let's just get water. So then the next thing was. One reason was that on Saturday, my daughter often goes to Burning Man and has not a big, but a crew who go there, and it's their big communal experience that she learned how to do from Sesshin, but it doesn't seem a lot like Sesshin in some ways. In other ways, maybe endurance and grittiness. And so I was talking to her about, well, you know, how much fire is in your life? She goes, what's all this about fire? The shadow of fire is water, right? And she said, "What do you think there's fire in my life?" Well, I said, "Well, they don't call it drowning, man. They call it burning, man." It's not a water festival, it's a fire festival. And she said, "Oh, yeah, right." So anyway, so this time the at burnt, and so people are due back in. I thought, wow, I've got water for them, because they'll come back in, it's covered with dust. But actually, it flooded at Burning Man, so they're all stuck there up to their axles in trucks and things. And they're pretty hardy, or they're technically smart people, so they'll work it out. But it's in another way, it's not so bad, because I was thought, they'll come in the middle of this meditation. They'll be all happy, and we'll have to keep them out for a minute. But actually, I don't have to worry. They won't be back until tonight or tomorrow morning. So that's sort of, in a way, what life is like. It's this tumble of flow of things. And I don't know, I thought, well, why do I even let people stage Burning Man at our house? Why don't Alice and I let that happen? And I couldn't think of a good reason for that too. But it's kind of interesting to talk to all these young people with completely different mad ideas about life, different paths, and so there we are. And different ways to deal with what they think a practice is. So the gift, I think the gift can't be a thing. I remember when my father he had a kind of, I don't know what, it was a sort of a watch he just loved. And it was sort of, it was gold or something, whatever that is. And it was a Tudor watch, which it's got Rolex on the case, but it's got automatic movement in it. They call them Tudors. And he gave it to me, but I hardly wear a watch, and I need something much more robust than that if I do. Banging my hands around in the garden and things like that. So it's interesting. So I have that, and I thought, well, all it does is sit in a drawer. I'm trying to give it to my daughter, but I thought, well, that's where I can get rid of it. And then she can cart it around for decades, different houses, then give it to someone to. But gifts are obviously not stuff, they're not things. So that's nice to see. And I have this feeling for maybe the gift is the wondering, the gift of being willing. If we're willing to be with uncertainty, it's great. Maybe these people, for me, the uncertainty of these people will arrive home like hot and sweaty and dry and thirsty and need a shower, and I won't be able to give them one. Well, actually, that couldn't have been more wrong as an assumption, could it? So the uncertainty is just really great. And I'm thinking about that. And here's Denise Levertov is a poet that I like more and more over the years, but this is her a gift. Just when you seem to yourself nothing but a flimsy web of questions, you're given the questions of others to hold in the emptiness of your hands. Songbird eggs that can still hatch if you keep them warm, butterflies opening and closing themselves in your cupped palms, trusting you not to injure their scintillant fur, their dust. You're given the questions of others as if they were answers to all you ask. You're given the questions of others as if they were answers to all you ask. Yes, perhaps this gift is your answer. It's a little bit like in the territory of teaching. You get the questions, and then you're the person, the vessel that holds them. I think that's I think a lot what it is to be being off and not going anywhere. It was interesting. I just stayed around and sort of worked in the garden and meditated, stuff like that. Turned up on Sunday to hear Jesse and Tess talk. It was kind of nice, but not doing very much. And noticing how perfectly life unfolds. The more I get out of the way, the better things unfold. And the involuntariness, so the involuntary, like the grass returning, or like the gold starting to fall off the maple tree. The autumn is announcing itself. It hasn't arrived, but it's saying knock, knock. And and so that's very much a Taoist idea. And the koan that really touches me about this is there's a notion about the elaborate thinky kind of Chinese notion in a way, but where there's this famous teacher and the student says, "What is the head in our language? What's the eternal thing? What is the source of everything?" And he says this great thing. He says, "Opening your eyes and not seeing the dawn, being completely in the not knowing. Opening your eyes and not seeing the dawn." So he says, in that case, what is the tail? What's the manifestation? What is not sitting on a 10,000-year-old seat, not being in an eternal place. And he goes on with this and that, but when the head harmonizes with the tail, what's that? When form and emptiness harmonize. He says, the descendants will prosper, but the one in the room will not know it. And that's the gifts we give to the world. We won't know how they turn out. We just won't know. The descendants will prosper, but the one in the room will not know it. And there's a marvelous thing about that, is that everything we do, we give, we cast into emptiness, and we cast into the vastness. But somebody is transformed by that. And what a great thing, like even in the darkness, opening your eyes and not seeing it. So much is done in the darkness, and it feeds us, and it kind of works out. We kind of get looked after until we don't, and that's okay too. So because we're part of the whole of things, the season changing. If you're in the other hemisphere, it's the spring is starting to appear. So which is its own marvelous thing, and so you have different things to worry about. So what I thought we would do is sit with the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. Okay, so let's sit a bit. There's a little bit more meditation. So just again, every time you meditate, I suppose you can't help feeling at the time. You just notice, and then you either fight with it or don't. And meditation, we normally recommend don't. So, and there's this great Tibetan saying of don't raise delusive thoughts. If you have delusive thoughts, don't get rid of them. Yeah. So it goes like that. And in a way, the Tao will solve it for you. A lot of different buses come by, but you don't have to get on them. A lot of different boats set off from the quay. You don't have to step onto them. But if you do step onto them, in a little while you notice it was a dream and you're not even on a boat. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. You can tell the Tao that can be named. It has to mean I don't have to explain myself to myself. A lot of what happens in meditation is planning or scheming or explaining things. The reason I did that was because the Tao doesn't really care about that. That is not true. Nobody knows why we did things. We just did. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the opposite origin of all particular things. Outside of desire and wanting, you realize the mystery. With desire, you see the manifestations. Mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. The valley spirit, the darkness of the valley. Darkness inside darkness, the mystery, the gateway to understanding. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Just enjoy yourself in healing. There's a certain meditation is certain relaxing into not knowing, into the unnameable. And you can't undo anything you're suffering about or deluded about, or very hard to undo. And if you try to work it out, you're just creating more delusion, really. When you're meditating, if the problem comes up, it's great. Just don't solve it. And the mind is always, that's how the mind knows what it is. It's solving problems, explaining itself, making excuses for itself, doing PR for itself. But actually, we don't need that. It's all right. Enjoy this life, enjoy yourself. If your mind is chasing after something, as soon as you notice, it's already stopped chasing after something, it's noticing instead. So just relax and enjoy yourself. You'll feel how it enlarges who we are, it enlarges our heart, enlarges our generosity and loving, our acceptance of others, and all that. Just by not naming things, not doing things. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The unnameable is eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. It has no desire. When you have no desire, you realize the mystery. No liking or hating. With desire, you realize the manifestations of things. Mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. The valley spirit who never dies. So I guess that's who we're keeping company with her when we just when we stop knowing and we allow ourselves to not know, be carried by the mystery. Just feeling the time, feeling what it is to be in this life, carried by the mystery. When I hear a temple bell, I can hear it ringing, 20 years ago, 40 years ago in session, It's a nice thing, just opening my heart. It's the same bell, the same thing, the eternal sound. I want to tell one more story about gifts. And this is long ago, I used to work with residents in a community hospital, and they were sort of with family medicine residency, so there was downtrodden primary care docs, but they were really good-hearted and they worked hard, and so people would give them, the poverty medicine clinics, and so they had sort of odd things they'd confront. But she had this patient who had been a muscle builder down in Venice Beach and had come north basically to die, and he had a big Harley, but he was wasting away, and part of his disease was he was being disfigured, and he'd come into, there was a walk-in clinic, so he'd come into the clinic, but people would cross the street to avoid him, kind of thing, with his Harley and his disfiguring disease, and she was a small person, but she was really a star doc, and she was actually Native American, and had a kind of, I don't know, sort of different approach to things from some of the docs, and she really sort of noticed the people she was working with, and so she would, without thinking anything about it, she noticed that he'd leave his house to come to the clinic, but otherwise he tried not to leave his house. And she didn't have any money, but she knew he liked fruit and things like that, so she would just buy him a bag of oranges at the market, every time he came in every week, and she'd just give him a bag of oranges. And she'd buy it when she'd pick them up when she shopped for her family. And she knew he didn't get much fresh food. But she was a resident, and the residents had attending physicians who, trying to coach them and guide them in the wise ways. And he called her in one day and gave her a lecture on boundaries. And he saw her give the oranges. And he said, "You absolutely can't do that." He was so disturbed by her behavior, he put a note in her record, which is like a bad thing, affects your career prospects and everything. And she thought about it. And everybody thought she was an excellent physician. She bonded well with the patients and did good medicine and things like that. And you just looked at her and you kind of knew that, And she was warm, which is probably her crime. And she was safe and not reckless and all. And she didn't believe the attending was right. But the question, it wasn't worth fighting because she was being transferred out. She was transferred off that rotation. She was going to leave for rotation elsewhere. And it was expected the patient would die by the time she came back, But when she returned, she got a phone call asking her to visit the patient who was expected to die that day. And when she arrived, he said, "I've been waiting for you to return so I could thank you for the oranges. You did something for me that no one has ever done before." The oranges, meant love and the globes of light, and the oranges meant all that for him. And then he thanked her, which he felt like was his duty, and then he died that afternoon. So, like a nice story about a gift. So, Tess, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I was really struck by that line You said during the meditation about the mystery and the manifestation arise together. And for some reason, that got me thinking about tears. How, like, tears, so often it's the Tao that, the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. It's like, I don't know exactly where they come from in me or in someone else. And there's like laughter can be that way too, that if you try to name it, it somehow takes something out of it. But as you were telling that story, I could see tears start to happen in Allison, and then tears start to happen in me. and now watching them happen in someone else makes them happen in me. And why is, what, like, it doesn't matter in a way, it just to have them. And the mystery of them, in a sense, and the mystery of all the things that arise, and that, I don't know, it can be fun to kind of try to name them, but to also surrender to the mystery is this deep thing. And I was just kind of thinking in the meditation, like those oranges, how many things in my life are like that. Like when I started graduate school, and I thought I knew which of the classes would be my favorites and which ones wouldn't, and how completely wrong I was, or how I thought, if I'm in session, what certain parts of the day are like, or, anytime I try to think I know anything, I just kind of lose something. There's just the having it that's so rich. So, and I think that that story is so interesting, because it's like, where do those impulses come from, particularly the ones that can seem transgressive in some way, and to learn just to trust them seems a really deep part of practice. So I don't know. Thanks. It's a sweet, sweet morning.
Yeah, that story is interesting because I could feel myself tearing up, and I thought, I don't know, it doesn't feel like me. And I thought, I know, I better not look at Tess or Alison. Nothing wrong if I did. And, if you asked her why she gave the oranges, she would give you a reason, but that wasn't why. It was just part of her, it was a flow of her being. That was what kind of person she was. And I lost track of her, but she's somebody I think about, quite often. And she's probably working up somewhere in that res somewhere, or something, near Lee Vining, or some of those like places that people haven't heard of. Very touching. John, Joseph, do you have anything you want to say?
You were talking about the Burning Man, and I'm in the same weather zone as Burning Man right now, where in the northern Sierras we're getting the same drizzling rain, and it made me think of how that rain, falls upon all of us shared. And we're sitting in the couch yesterday morning looking at pictures from Burning Man. I was nestling with my daughter, who was there last year, and about how extreme the 2 years were. Like last year was, I don't know, 110, 115 degree weather with winds and whiteouts of dust, and this year, of course, very cold and wet. And I just felt like, aren't these the two poles of my life, and that the playa is everything in between, and all that richness that's on the playa is that gift, that I have.
Alison, did you want to say anything?
Sure, yeah. A couple things I was thinking of, the poem that you read, and I think it was, who was it, Levertall, or?
Yeah, Denise Levertov. Yeah.
Levertall, and how she said this beautiful thing about the questions of others. And she gave a couple of images, one of the dust on butterfly wings, holding the butterfly, or the robin's egg, I think, wondering if you kept it warm, if it would hatch. And the questions of other portions of the universe that then become answers to your own questions, which just seems so beautiful and strange that, and it was tied in my mind when you said that everything we give is cast into emptiness. And we've been spending just days and days looking at images for John's book, for the Buddha book. And there are this treasure trove that we came upon of from the Dunhuang caves in China, which are this series of, I don't know, like 500 caves that contained like from more than 1,000 years of Buddhist art. And I've been digging like an archaeological dig, looking for particular images. So I have to go through all these other images to find it. And just through the British Museum, I feel like I'm in the British Museum library, looking through their files in person, and seeing these images for the first time, and just astonished by what questions they were asking 1,000 or more years ago, and that their answers, these images, like it came past this one image of a Buddha, which I've never seen anything like it, and we've chosen it for John's book, so I'm hoping that'll be one of the ones in it. And it has this these kind of turquoise and rose-colored, brilliant colors that I heard that they also were grinding precious stones and semi-precious stones and jewels to make the pigments, and they're still as fresh as they were 1,000 years ago when they painted them. And I thought, when I looked at that, I thought, that's the answer to my question, is this image coming through the darkness. There's the strange gift. So yeah, all those things.
John Bennett, do you have anything to say?
Sure. I just love the Tao that cannot be named, that can be named, is not the eternal Tao. Feels like such a lovely invitation to allow the brain, my brain at least, and probably most brains, which is constantly trying to understand things and problem solving and busying itself, spinning in little circles. And it's a great invitation to just allow it to rest, just to be, and then to kind of float in the mystery rather than trying to figure out or name the mystery. And I'm sitting in a friend's vacation home on the East Coast, and I'm staring out the window at this gray shingled roof with light dappled through the tree, that light shining through the trees, casting these ever moving shadows because there's a breeze blowing, and it just felt like this wonderful dissolving into mystery and movement and color and light, and no understanding or explanation needed. It was very nice.
The vastness is here, yes.
Very here.
Angela Raquel, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, well, I was really struck by the naming, not naming too, and just thinking about, well, it's the bulbs are flowering here, and yet at the same time, over the last few years, people in Australia have been recategorising the seasons because, of course, in the tropics, the European seasons just don't apply. But even here in Tasmania, where it's sort of cool temperate, it doesn't really, the European seasons don't really apply either. And because we get the breath down off the desert and up from Antarctica. And anyway, people have been trying to recategorise the Australian seasons, and there are 6 in the tropics. And 4 or 5 here. And at one time in my life, I would have loved that. I would have been onto it and trying to figure out, what bit of the season is it here? And actually realizing that what I love is the categories having been taken away, that the acknowledgement that they don't fit here, and that there's a moment when, bulbs, flower, it's the moment now where the little birds are coming back from the mainland after overwintering. The cuckoos will arrive next to jump on that set of possibilities. So just really enjoying noticing what comes. So thanks.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. What about when it's all integrated, the form and emptiness and the head and the tail and the masculine and feminine, yes and no? Everyone will prosper, but the one in the room, what the teacher will not know it. We might say the Tao is the teacher, we go out from it. And that physician doesn't know that people are telling her story about the oranges, It was a gift she gave all of us, They say in the military that any time you can get to sleep or eat, you should take it. Well, I think we should say anytime you can get to meditate, you should take it. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The darkness in a mystery, the gateway to all understanding. When the old teachers said things that are sometimes strange, you didn't have to work them out. You had to go there to the place they came from. That's all right. That's a lot easier than working things out. You're already here. That's where you have to go, here. The Tao that can be explained is not the eternal Tao. The joy that can be explained, sorrow can't be explained. Beauty can't be explained. And the silence just fills, expands in the heart, and it fills the whole world. The old masters used to watch the movements of the cranes and snakes to work out how to feel the natural harmony. And so then when some of them taught things like Tai Chi, they have crane movement, things like that. And so in a way, we're like the cranes and the snakes and the deer wandering through the woods and through the empty pasture. So right, that's our gift, just that wandering, being this life with its questions and feeling it come to us, feeling the rain and the sun, and feeling, I think, how much we love, which is another thing we don't have any choice about. So thank you for coming. It's just a marvelous thing to sit together. It just warms my heart. So